On nearly every San Francisco street corner, you'll spot them. Tourists and locals will pass by at least one of them every single day, no matter where they are in the city. Walking around here in North Beach? Absolutely. Riding the light rail in Outer Sunset? You'll see them. Out for a stroll in Bernal Heights? They're here too. They're hardly uniform. Some of them are red, some of them are blue, some have both colors, and at least one doesn't have either. But what are these things? And why are they here, and only here, in San Francisco? Well, these are police and fire emergency call boxes, and they're part of an emergency response system that San Francisco has maintained for over 160 years. They look like relics from another century, and that's because they are. In fact, many US cities used them for emergencies in the years before the advent of the telephone. Washington, D.C. has a few, dedicated as public art installations, and Milwaukee too. But San Francisco has more of them than any other US city, and they're still wired into the city's infrastructure to this day. But why? Well, that's exactly what I went to the city to try and figure out. The answer lies in San Francisco's near-constant battle with fires, earthquakes, and disaster. A struggle that shaped the way the city planned its streets and protected its people. And unlike every other US city, San Francisco never ripped them out. These overlooked, underappreciated telegraph boxes have a story to tell, and that story is yet another in the chronicles of San Francisco's historic uniqueness and long-lasting uniformity. If you're new here, this is Fourth Place, your place to learn about US geography, urbanism, transportation, and city planning. Our story starts in the middle of the 19th century, a time when San Francisco was riding the high from the California gold rush, rapidly expanding and densifying. At the time, San Francisco was a dense, wood-built boomtown that had already suffered multiple catastrophic fires, with each blaze exposing the fragility of the growing urban fabric. The city was young and looking for some new technology to solve this problem. Now, the initial deployment of the red boxes was helmed by Charles A. Stearns, the city's first superintendent of the new system, who oversaw the initial rollout of 37 boxes, strategically scattered across the city on April 24, 1865. The very first activation was logged just 2 days later at a box located on the corner of Powell and Market. And almost in a foreshadowing kind of way, it was, in fact, a false alarm. But how did they work? Pulling the hook set a spring-loaded code wheel in motion. As the wheel turned, little metal teeth opened and closed an electrical circuit in a specific rhythm. That rhythm was the box's unique number, transmitted as Morse code via telegraphic-style pulses traveling through copper wires underground. But instead of the signal going straight to the nearest firehouse, they traveled to the city's central alarm office, the nerve center of the system. And by coincidence, I was actually staying at a hotel surrounded by Redbox history. Here, on either side of Portsmouth Square. The original alarm office was located on Brenham Place, a since renamed street on the west side of the green space. As the Redbox system grew, work was being done to construct a larger system inside San Francisco City Hall, which was located on the east side of Portsmouth Square, now the Hilton Financial District. Both the Brenham Place office and the City Hall were heavily damaged during the earthquake of 1906, and so a permanent central alarm office was eventually constructed at Jefferson Square Park. But that building has since been demolished. Inside the alarm office, registers then printed the unique callbox number, and operators matched the signal to a sheet that listed which fire companies were supposed to respond. The office then activated bells and tappers into those firehouses, striking out the unique box number so fire crews knew exactly where to go. The system was created to make taking action swift and coordinated, effectively preventing overlapping responses and keeping coverage balanced across the city. By the late 19th century, San Francisco had expanded the network to cover virtually every neighborhood, laying 200 miles of underground conduit and 150 miles of overhead cable, so that no one stood more than 2 blocks from a red box. Along with everyday fire calls, the system proved its worth during some of San Francisco's most catastrophic natural disasters. After the infamous 1906 earthquake and fire, and even during 1989's Loma Prieta earthquake. During both events, the boxes functioned as a backup when telephones and radio channels were incapacitated. Though even in 1906, the vulnerabilities of a telegraph emergency network in a disaster-prone city were too obvious to ignore, especially as the city was already implementing its very first telephone lines. History buffs watching this video may already know that San Francisco was an early adopter and pioneer of the telephone, having its first experimental telephone line installed mere months after Alexander Graham Bell received his patent for his invention. By 1881, San Francisco had 10 telephone exchange offices, nearly 700 miles of wiring, and around 2,500 telephones in service. The city was actually the site of America's first transcontinental phone call. In January 1915, Alexander Graham Bell himself made the first ceremonial transcontinental telephone call from his office at AT&T in New York City to his assistant, Thomas Watson, who was inside 333 Grant Avenue in San Francisco. San Francisco's new telephones allowed callers to better describe the exact nature of an emergency in a more timely and direct manner, rather than just send out a signal to a location. And even over 100 years before today, these things were seen as increasingly outdated. So naturally, it was this decade, the 1910s, that saw the implementation of the very first blue boxes for police emergencies, which utilized telephone technology rather than the red box's telegraph tech. Telephones might have been gaining popularity in homes and businesses, but portable telephones and radios? Those wouldn't be utilized by cops until the 1970s. There's no reliable information online as to when exactly these blue boxes began to roll out, but we do know of at least one dating back to 1913, a time when police officers on patrol still needed fixed, reliable communication points where they could check in with their station houses. They do this by using a special key to open the box and utilize a dedicated telephone wired underground to switchboards located inside local police stations. So now, officers were able to connect directly to HQ for check-ins, incident reports, or even to call for backup. As it happened, the very introduction of the blue box system consequently preserved many of the red boxes, even past their perceived expiration. Sometimes, intersections featured combined pedestals that carried both systems, a red fire telegraph box and a blue police telephone box, bolted together, sharing the same pole. This iteration is a rare sight today, but they're out there, and they're my favorite version to find. It's also important to note that the blue boxes were specifically built in order to bypass the city's commercial telephone network, providing a fast and direct line of communication in the event of a police emergency. By the mid-20th century, San Francisco's two emergency box systems were showing their age, only in different ways. The red boxes were constantly abused. By 1970, about 80% of pulls were false alarms, and by 2018, that figure rose to 96%, according to the San Francisco Board of Supervisors. The blue boxes, on the other hand, lost their usefulness as technology advanced. Once patrol cars were equipped with two-way radios and officers began carrying portable walkie-talkies, the street corner telephones became redundant. But despite that, San Francisco maintained both networks way longer than any other American city, and they continue to, which is why you can still see many of them with fresh coats of paint all throughout the city. The reason why is sorta obvious when you think about it. It's no different from why the boxes were introduced some 160 years ago, in case of emergency. This is less true for the blue boxes, which have really only stuck around for their historical value. I mean, they're not ugly, in fact, quite the opposite. They're charming, colorful, and add a sort of old-world character that fits right in with the city's surrounding streetscape, much of which was built around the same time when these guys came to be. But the red boxes are a bit more important to keep around for the city. The elusive big one is always top of mind for San Francisco emergency responders, so the red boxes are maintained to act as a last line of defense, redundancy in disasters. Who knows what the next catastrophic earthquake will do to the city's communication infrastructure? But one thing is for certain, if these little red boxes survived both 1906 and 1989, chances are they'll be right here, standing tall, ready to spring into action at a moment's notice. And honestly, I think that's pretty cool. Today, San Francisco still maintains roughly 2,100 red boxes out of an original peak of 2,300, though many of them are visibly damaged, bagged, tagged, or have been marked out of service. Keeping the red box system operational costs the city about $2 million a year. At times, the city has explored modernization of the old boxes, mulling over the idea of adding wireless radio transmitters or solar power, which would be more reliable and less at risk than the centuries-old underground comms infrastructure. The blue boxes are hardly maintained as a part of any active system, which is why they're often found in rougher shape than their red counterparts. Some locals, though, have taken matters into their own hands, which is why most still look beautiful. So be sure to keep an eye out for these on your next trip to the city. You won't have to look too long to find one, that's for sure. You never know what hidden history you might be passing in your everyday life. And more often than you think, that history isn't really hiding at all. Anyway, I'll see you next week, right here, from 4th place.